Welcome, guys, to this masterclass in talent management and professional development. For me and from Sara, we are extremely happy to organize something for all our friends, colleagues, clients on what are the trends associated with talent management and professional development, how we can be a little bit more resilient, especially to start managing our professional growth and understanding the dynamics of the job market. We have people from Africa, from Europe, from UK, Latin America. To provide just a brief overview about my profile, I'm Dr. Elvis Hernandez. My friends call me Elvis. You can call me Elvis. No problem at all, okay? Currently, I'm Executive Director of OSL UK and Academic Director of OSL Analytics Academy. You want to connect with me through LinkedIn, or if you need any help associated with the area of risk management, quantitative methods, decision analytics, how these areas can be integrated in the area of talent management, happy to help you, okay? I have over 19 years of professional experience working in the industry of risk management, decision analytics, real options, and so forth. I have a PhD in finance and another PhD in engineering, and at the same time, I've been doing some executive programs worldwide in this area as well, helping professionals and companies to leverage the skills and capabilities in risk management and applying these areas as well in other part of the organization. I'm really happy to present Sarah Taylor. She's the leading manager of OSL Group in the area of resourcing, recruitment, headhunting business, and I asked her to bring her professional experience across more than 20 years working in the industry, connecting professionals with companies and clients as a contractors, as permanent roles for many multinational energy companies, including oil and gas and renewable. Guys, if you are looking for some expertise, some help in the area of resourcing, recruitment, or headhunting, she's the right one, okay? I've been working with her probably the last 4 years in the area of talent management, and I can say even she had experience in this area because she worked with one of the largest engineering consulting companies in UK, helping them to grow and manage the recruitment capabilities and teams, and especially to deploy services to oil and gas clients across Europe and UK as well. Currently, Sarah is not only providing specialized engineers to support clients' projects, as I mentioned before, as a contractor or in more permanent roles, but also is helping professionals and companies to get the best talent with risk management expertise and capabilities. If you need to contact her, you have the email over there. Please use it. Just also you can send a Christmas card if you don't mind. Okay. Well, it was just a brief introduction about the presenter. My area, the area that I'm going to cover, is an introduction to the, let's say, to the dynamics of the job market. It's understanding a little bit the economic trends and the role of the pandemic risk in this job market, in looking for new opportunities, either for growing inside of the company or moving around to take opportunity of the new challenges that we have in the industry. I'm not going to assess the economics or the financial determinants. Of course, as a financial and economics background, I'm not going to touch here. Of course, in another lecture we can talk a little bit about the determinant of the job market, like inflation, interest rate, the demand, supply, economic growth. But right now we are going to just analyze the job market as a process. Okay. As a process, we have the following, okay? And the process, we know 90% of the time, the process in the job market, in the hiring or looking for talents, start with the formal education system, okay? Of course, after entering into the formal job markets, we need to start managing expectation strategies. You need to take care of yourself. You need to look for what is your professional development activities, what is your vision to growth. You want to grow only in technical skill, or you want to reach a top managerial position in a company, or just want to launch your own business. But at the same time, when you are growing in your organization, you need to also take care of others. You cannot grow if you don't let other people to work. Okay. During this process, of course, we visualize that one of the areas that are important is reinvention and change. You need to be resilient because you have a lot of fluctuation. You are going to find a lot of uncertainty in the job market, and you need to be quite resilient to take opportunities and mitigate the downside of risk of the fluctuation of the job market. But from the first part of the process, which is in the education system, there is just a generic lesson learned. What is the lesson learned? Well, I remember probably when I complete my bachelor degree, one of my mentors said, okay, Elvis, it was in 2004. He told me, well, having a university degree is no longer a guarantee that you are going to succeed in the job market. You have to start differentiating from the other competitors. So because there are a lot of people competing for the same position. And actually, we have here many people in this MasterClass that are completing the bachelor, are completing the master degree, or are completing the PhD. So it's important to start visualizing what are the hard skills and the soft skills you have. Be competitive, and this is the area that Sarah is going to touch in the other part of the presentation, is how you can be more efficient in order to differentiate yourself and providing the right message for companies who are going to get the best value from your application and the role that you are going to have in their organization, in this organization. You need to visualize that uncertainty is always there and is part of the journey. And now we can visualize that we have the huge problem around the pandemic risk of COVID-19. In addition to this, of course, if you are working for companies where you are not the shareholder or the main investor, you are also exposed to the decision makers' actions and decisions, the leadership. What type of managerial leadership your company managing or putting on the table to manage company performance. In addition to this, you need to visualize that there are economic cycles there. Sometimes the economy can be in recession, sometimes can be in expansion, and all these areas are out of your control. But if you are able to understand this dynamic, you also can manage your strategies, your expectations, and as well, if you are managing people, you can visualize what areas are going to be critical for managing those people that are there to support you or to support the organization. Finally, as I mentioned before, you have to be resilient. Plan for the best, be ready for the worst. And this is probably the areas that Sarah, I, and our senior management team, we are collaborating with many organizations, is helping them to develop a risk-based action plan for talent management and professional development. I can tell you from our side, one area to start working and visualizing in order to create your risk-based action plan is understanding what the economic trends are in order to make better decisions, make better action and plans. Why is that? Because if you go for the dynamics of the economy or the economic trends, one of the things that we saw every day, what are the key words that characterize the job market? And now we can see words like furlough, unemployed, layoff, employee, we are hiring, or we are saying looking for new positions. These are keywords. But we need to understand that every time the economy is facing crisis, there are some winners and some losers. And I would like to use this a small snapshot from the code. And you can see here that some companies are not performing well and other companies are performing better. So you can see here the companies that are not performing so well, they are start making some decision to increase profitability or just to reduce costs, and they have to make decisions. It's part of the process. Of course, there are other companies that are growing and they are looking for people, and these are elements that you need to take into account. When you are evaluating these type of things, you need to understand what are the industry challenges, and as well what type of skills you have that can be immediately insert into other organizations, can be taken into account in other organizations. So, for example, I have a friend in Germany who was a senior engineer in one of the in Lufthansa with an amazing quantitative background, and he changed a little bit the CV, put more skills, how he helped the organization to manage quantitative information. Now he's the responsible of the data analytics department in a retailing company. We also see people from the sales with a lot of sales expertise moving from real estate and construction to healthcare services. So what we are saying here is the sooner you start visualizing what skill, what problems, and what areas in the economy are moving, it's easy for you to start creating your best CV, your own sales pitch, your own connection, your own network around the industry you want to make the change or you want to move, okay? Remember, you are not going to be challenged for the things out of your control. You need to be agile to revamp when something adverse happens. You can use sources like the IMF, the World Bank Forum, the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, Bloomberg, McKinsey, and they can give you a lot of information about what are the industry challenges. Okay, we have climate change, decarbonization, integrated project, strategic risk management, a skilled labor shortage, cybersecurity, data analytics, and so forth. The most important for us is understanding, okay, what skills I have that can help organization to drive and to mitigate these challenges. But of course, you need to understand the organizational level, because if we are just completing the university or we are not having a lot of experience, probably we are looking for jobs or opportunities at operational levels. We need to understand a little bit the individual and teamwork, problem solving, giving a lot of support. If you are looking for more tactical position, managerial level, you have to have competences and skills to manage people, leadership. You need to remember, you cannot grow to strategic levels or to superior levels if you don't let other people to grow and helping you during that process. So you always need to visualize what type of position you are looking for and what is the organization level you are interested in. Because professional level move from bottom to the top, and talent management always look at from the top to the bottom. Okay, this is important, and this is a minor differentiation that you need to take into account when you are looking for a opportunity in these areas. For example, I remember a while ago when I was working at the bank, when I entered in the bank, I wasn't doing a lot of analysis, a lot of data analytics, a lot of things to support the organization. The moment they gave me the opportunities to move to a managerial position, I have to take care other people. I need to help them to grow, to support, to give me more support to make free my time for doing more my managerial and leadership activities. Of course, remember, if you are in the strategic level, you have to have a strong sense of the commercial activity of that company, because you are more in the strategy position of the company. You need to also visualize what is the succession plan, and sometimes participate in networking and other type of interrelated activity outside of the organization, because it's part of the activities that you need to follow up. After showing more or less these industry challenges, you need to go a little bit deep, because you need to know what type of skills you have that can help this to overcome these industry challenges. What I have right now, I put the industry challenges in the center of the decision-making process. And now you can visualize what are the most common transferable skills across the industry. That is going to help you as well to prepare your CV, the cover letter, the storytelling process, and as well the pitch, the elevator pitch, in order to start visualizing what skills are going to help to be used, and how these skills are going to create certain dynamics in companies to overcome industry challenges. Not only hard skills, also soft skills matters. And especially now in the emerging of the data analytics, machine learning, automation, artificial intelligence, we cannot substitute emotion and feelings. We are social entities. And remember, emotional attachment, connection matter a lot. For example, I can differentiate here. You can buy shares in the market using algorithms. But if you want to buy a company, a formal company, you want to execute a merger and acquisition strategy, you need connection. You need to talk to people. People need to visualize that both companies can connect. So the human interaction is not going to disappear in that way. Remember, one way to start is understanding the economic trends, the industry challenges, and what skills are highly transferable across different industries to overcome these challenges. That is going to help you to create a risk-based action plan for talent management if you are managing people, or helping or visualizing how you can help other professionals to grow inside of the organization, or to moving around in other business lines, and as well giving you the skills to create your own professional development strategy in order to be more resilient and sustainable in the long term. And these are the areas that now Sarah is going to give you, and is going to give you more solid information on how to be more active and resilient in the job market. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So let's move on and have a look at what we're going to cover in the second part of the webinar. So firstly, we're going to discuss some tips and strategies that we can employ to succeed in a competitive job market. To be honest with you, the markets that I've worked in, primarily engineering and risk, have always had competitive specialisms, but this has really increased since COVID. So really since around April, May time this year, COVID has had a significant impact. We'll then move on to look at how digitalization has changed recruitment. So not only how we actually search for jobs, but how we go about recruiting as well. And this has been happening in our industry for quite some time, but it has accelerated since COVID. And a major impact of digitalization on recruitment is LinkedIn. LinkedIn itself, it's been around now for about 18 years. However, the way that we use LinkedIn has changed significantly. it's become far more prominent in our recruitment process. So we'll spend quite some time discussing how LinkedIn actually works and how we can effectively market ourselves on LinkedIn, work with agents, how to select which agent to work with, so that your skills are marketed in the right way. And finally, we'll discuss your cover letter and how to write your CV. And the cover letter is quite a traditional tool, and I don't receive them through that frequently, to be honest with you. But if they're written correctly, they can add real value to your job application, and it's a key differentiator as well. So as we move through to 2021 and beyond, I think competition for jobs is going to increase. So I thought it'd be useful to look at some tools and strategies that we can adopt to make sure that we're successful in securing our job role. And the starting point is to think about how we can differentiate ourselves from our competition. So initially, I want to encourage you to think about your differentiators. And if we focus on the technical side to start with, so this may be to specific technical skills or experience that you've gained. It might be the fact that you're multilingual or you've worked in a specific geographical location. But I also want you to consider your soft skills, which Elvis has touched on earlier in the webinar. So your non-technical skills that refer to how you work. So things like our level of emotional intelligence, our adaptability, what is our growth mindset, and how do we go about resolving conflict? So how do we influence people in the right way? As well as the more standard ones like teamwork, leadership, general communication. And once we've identified these differentiators, then I need you to think of some good, tangible examples that are going to illustrate them. And these can then be included in our job search strategy. And this strategy is multifaceted, and it includes the following areas. So firstly, it's essential that we're going to be proactive in our job search, in seeking out job roles and opportunities. We need to be comfortable in marketing and selling ourselves, and we're going to come on to this in the next slide. It's easier said than done often for many people. We're going to adopt what I like to call a warm professional approach. So people like to deal and interact with warm people, so someone with a warm persona, yet somebody who's still professional. A major part of your job strategy is to tailor your CV and cover letter for specific roles. So ideally, you're going to tailor them around a job specification and a person specification. And finally, I'm going to touch on the importance of integrating digitalisation into your job search. It's key for you to have a successful job search strategy. And as we move through the presentation, I'm going to give you some guidance on how we can look to do that. So, to move on, blowing our own trumpet. Well, we all need to feel comfortable in selling ourselves. And to some, blowing their own trumpet comes really naturally. And we all know people like that. But to the vast majority of us, it doesn't. And we need it to. No one else is going to do it for you. So, we need to feel comfortable in selling our own personal brand. So how can we go about selling ourselves without it feeling uncomfortable? Well, firstly, we need to use those tangible examples to illustrate our skills and successes or achievements. So we're giving actual evidence of what we're saying, we're substantiating it, and suddenly it starts to feel a little bit more comfortable to us. Secondly, it's really good to consider using some testimonials or case studies. Let somebody else shout about your achievements or your skills. And a great place to put these is actually on your LinkedIn profile, which we'll look at shortly. And thirdly, we need to change our mindset. So we need to change the way we think about selling ourselves, selling our professional or our personal brand. If we sell our skills in an authentic way, it feels far more comfortable. So I'm not saying, you don't have to pretend to be somebody that you're not, and we're certainly not going to mislead or deceive. Instead, we're going to establish which language and which examples and which techniques actually feel right for us, so we feel more comfortable in talking about our skills and experiences. So you need to get clear on your strategy. What skills and experience are you going to sell? So what's relevant to the role, or indeed to the person that you're speaking with? And the good news is that people do buy from people. And being yourself, by communicating your passion and your values, your drive, your strengths, and your relevant experience, people will buy into that. They will buy into you, and they will want to work with you. So let's move on and look at the impact of digitalisation on recruitment. Without a doubt, COVID has accelerated the need for companies to adopt digitalisation as part of the recruitment process. And really, digitalisation in recent years has changed how we source candidates as a recruiter, how we assess them, and also most recently how we interview them. In-house, we never really did video interviews unless somebody was overseas, and therefore it was logistically difficult for them to reach us. But since COVID, all of our early stage interviews have been via video. So before I go into too much detail on that, I thought it would be useful for us to review the most frequently used forms of digitalisation. So the ones that as a candidate you're most likely to come across, and the ones that most recruiters are currently using. So a fairly obvious one is online applications. We're all used to them. It's very rare nowadays that an application doesn't have some online element to it. And digital applications have made it far easier for recruiters to track candidates throughout the process. It eliminates any human error, and some recruiters have actually invested and have adopted applicant tracking and tablets, and the clue's in the title. It allows applicants to complete any part of the recruitment process that isn't a face-to-face interview on a mobile device, and ultimately it speeds up that application process. So the use of video interviews, as I said, has really accelerated due to COVID. They're particularly useful for early stage interviews. So a recruiter can replace the initial telephone screening interview with a video interview, which you gain much more from. You can really get to start to see the persona and the individual and some of their behaviours. And commonly, clients are also replacing the first stage face-to-face interviews with this technology as well. And it's working well. I have to say, at first, it did feel a little bit different, but people soon settle into it. And I think if people have been working through lockdown from home, an awful lot of people are used to using Teams and Skype for meetings. It's a very similar feel to that. In fact, recently we had experience of one of our corporate clients asking a candidate to actually complete a video instead of a cover letter. So it really gave the client more of an understanding really of that individual, more of an insight into that person. They could view some of their behaviours. And we also had a candidate actually who was asked to do a video at final stage, where you would normally maybe do a face-to-face presentation. They had to do that via a video. So we all need to get comfortable with videos, video interviews, video presentations, because they are most definitely here to stay. And the final point that I want to make on the types of digitalisation that recruiters are using is automation in general. Automation has really ramped up over the last 5 years, and I'm sure this will only increase. Right now, many recruiters use a computer to read a CV before they even review it. And that's down to sheer numbers really, and the fact that it speeds the screening process up. So the computer will search for keywords that are sitting in a job spec or a person spec, and then forward those suitable CVs across to the recruiter to view. So this is why it's really essential, one of the reasons why it's really essential to tailor your CV or cover letter for each role that you apply to. So you want to mirror some of the skill sets that that they're looking for in the job description or person specification. If we move through to this diagram, I've included this because it shows us the benefits to the end hirer of digitalising their recruitment process. And firstly, as recruiters, we can reach out to far more candidates. We have a much broader spread, and therefore we have more choice, and we can reach them more quickly, and we're reducing our time to hire, which can be critical. Digitalisation also significantly lowers our overall recruitment costs, whether that's expenses for travel to money spent on ads in the press, which can be quite costly. You know, digitalisation is allowing recruiters to significantly cut costs as they work through their process. And it also allows for data-driven decision making. So there's less bias or prejudice in the process, and it allows for decisions to be made on facts that are easily recorded. And finally, it offers an improved candidate experience as long as it's delivered correctly. It enables us to share and gain far more information with our candidates, and that ultimately ensures that we make the right selection and the right match. So what does the future hold for digitalisation? Well, most recently, back in May, one of our large corporate companies adopted virtual reality. They were recruiting for a sales account manager, and they wanted to showcase a day in the life of. And historically, they would have basically put the final stage candidates to sit along with a job incumbent and spend the day with them and review them. But because of COVID, and they wanted to be a little bit innovative as well, they developed different scenarios that enabled the final stage candidates to experience various things like their sales model, the company's value proposition, the culture, the expectations of the company via virtual reality. From a timescale perspective, it saved our client a lot of time, and after the initial outlay, it saved them cost as well. I think their sessions or scenarios ran for 25 minutes as opposed to a whole day. And from a candidate perspective, we got some really positive feedback. You know, they found it quite fun. It was quite innovative, which was actually very important for the client's end brand. And they were able to visualize themselves in the role. So they got a very clear understanding of what the client's requirements were, and that's critical, particularly when we're looking to match. I think the overriding benefit of the VR from a client's perspective was that it shortened the process, it was more cost effective, but their brand was offered an enhanced candidate experience. There's a really positive impact on their brand image, which obviously they were very happy with. So the other area that I just wanted to touch on in regards to what happens next is artificial intelligence. And AI has already entered the world of recruitment, but the jury is most definitely out. And the reason for this is because the doubters see AI as taking away the human element of hiring, which has some advantages, but it also highlights some really big possible gaps as well. So we'll see what AI brings and what develops, and we'll see if it becomes something that we can rely on in the future. So moving on to something that we can most definitely rely on in the world of digitalisation is LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn has proven itself to be a really effective recruitment tool for not only job seekers but for recruiters as well. If we turn the clock back 10 years, a good CV and nailing an interview were probably the two most important elements to securing your job role. However, LinkedIn has totally changed the game plan. From a recruitment perspective, LinkedIn is a global database for recruiters, and LinkedIn has a large team of people over in Ireland, recruiters, and actively sell different levels of access to their database. So LinkedIn has become a massive global database, and agencies and companies invest quite heavily in LinkedIn because it, dependent on what level you purchase, what level of access you purchase, the top level actually gives you access to every single person on LinkedIn. So not just people who are in your first direct network or your second network. So it can be a very powerful recruitment tool. And from a candidate or job seeker's perspective, the site can be a gift. You can be tracked down and sourced and visible to hundreds of recruiters who are looking for people, but that gift can also be a little bit of a curse as well, because the flip side of that is when I do a search for specific skill sets on LinkedIn, I'm not just viewing 10 or 12 candidates, I'm viewing hundreds. So your profile is being viewed along with many other people's who have the same skill sets. So we need to spend some time now discussing how we can stand out on LinkedIn, so how we can stand out from our competition and from the digital crowd. So let's look at some top tips to optimize our profiles online. I'm sure you will recognize this individual's profile. When I was preparing,
really bad example.
Well, no, not at all, Elvis, because when I was preparing for the webinar, I decided to do a search on LinkedIn amongst my colleagues. I thought, right, who can I use as a really strong example? And we're going to use Elvis's because it's great. I'm just going to come out of the presentation and go into LinkedIn, so just bear with me one moment. So what I want us to focus on are some of the profile basics. So for me, your LinkedIn profile is the cornerstone of our professional brand, for the reasons that I've just described, obviously, in regards to the search potential. So the first point that I want to focus on, Elvis, is the photograph. So at the top, I mean, Elvis, you're spoiling us here. You have 2 photos. Most people only have 1. But the point that I want to make is that the photograph needs to be a professional, well-lit headshot. So it's amazing how many people use photos from their nights out or from holiday snaps. LinkedIn isn't the place for that. So the guidance that I got from LinkedIn around the quality of the photo is they advised me it has to be at least 200 by 200 pixels. Anything smaller than that appears too grainy and it's not clear. So we want to optimize our profile because the visual is really important. What's nice here as well is I talked before about a lovely warm persona, professional persona. Elvis is smiling, and anyone who knows Elvis, he always beams. It's natural to him, but it's warm, it's friendly, and it's engaging. So try and smile as well. Give that warm persona. If we move down, Elvis, to your URL, so this is your name. Sorry, still stay on the top part, apologies. So if we look at Elvis's name, this is called the URL, and that is obviously where people will easily find you online. So if you have a very common name like I do, then you can consider using a middle name to differentiate. Elvis doesn't have that problem, so there's nothing to worry about there. And he's also included his qualifications in his URL, which I am expecting, Elvis, that you did that because that's important. You want to shout about that. It's your credibility. I don't include mine in my URL simply because it's not that essential for me as a recruiter, but certainly in the market that Elvis works in, it's important. So feel free to add that if you wish. If we move down to just under Elvis's name, we've got what we call the headline. So this is especially important. Firstly, because it's highly visible when recruiters search for you, but also because it's searchable. So when a recruiter does a search, LinkedIn picks up some of the words that are in the headline. So it's limited to 120 characters. The fact that you're even looking for work, a lot of people add that to the headline. It really does make you stand out. So then just below the headline, you can see in blue, there's contact information. Elvis, can you open that up for me, please?
Yeah.
So we can see here that Elvis has customized his contact information, which for me as a recruiter is great. I can ring him, I can email him almost instantaneously and have that conversation. So really, if you fill in your contact detail, LinkedIn will reward you with more visibility, which is key. So Elvis, can you close that for me now and just move to the About section? And if you could open that up for me so we can see the full text, please. So the key initial point to make on your About section is please don't make it too long. Elvis, this is just about bordering on long enough. So
yeah, I told you, it's a good example.
It's a good example for you. But this is where we want to hone our content and our communication and our message around selling some of our key skill sets, both technical and soft. And Elvis, that's the one thing I think that was missing from here. But it's perhaps because of the market or the target audience that you're looking at. But certainly from a job hunting perspective, I would want you to include some soft skills here as well. And it's very much like your CV profile or your personal summary, but the difference is on LinkedIn, you can show a little bit more of your personality if you want to. Don't be shy. This is the time to sell those skill sets. It's your opportunity to let employers know not only who you are, but most importantly, what you can do for them as well. Now, Elvis here has put some great visuals. Visuals, again, are very, very engaging. He's also put some detail around his experience and skill sets. And the length of this is great. It's not too wordy and it's chronological, which is superb. We always want to stick with a chronological format. You roll down again for me, please, Elvis. Should come to education. Yeah, super. So we're going to put our education on here, and education that is relevant. That's the key. So I'm not going to pop down the fact that I have 9 GCSEs, grade A's and B's. It's my degree that's important for me. It's my recruitment accreditations and qualifications that are important to me. So just make it relevant, but please add them to your profile. It's one of the basics. So here you've basically got individuals who you've worked with at different stages of your career, and they are talking about you. They are selling you. They are effectively letting people know what it's like to work with Elvis. So that they're doing some selling for you, and so it's essential that you get some recommendations. And Elvis is being quite modest here, but he can, if you click down again, he'd open up even more. I didn't count how many you had, Elvis. So I think a key thing with LinkedIn is to essentially grow your network. If you can just scroll back up for me, Elvis, please, to the top where you've got your connections. LinkedIn doesn't actually detail specific number of connections that you have, but I don't know, do you know how many you've got, Elvis? I know they only go up to 500. I presume it's thousands.
21,000.
There you go. Okay, so the reason Elvis is that well connected on LinkedIn and why LinkedIn works so efficiently for him is because he posts content. He's engaging. So as soon as you start to post content, you become more visible. And that rewards you insofar as growing your network. The one thing that Elvis is good at, if you just scroll down to me to featured Elvis, is he's using a lot of visuals on his profile. Examples of the book that he's written, examples of some of the qualification courses that he's been involved with. It's very engaging, it's very eye-catching. The one thing that Elvis hasn't got, and it is the one and only thing, is a video.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we touched on this earlier, didn't I, in regards to how videos are becoming very, very popular. And I think I'm going to challenge you, Elvis, to do a video and
Yeah.
get it added to your profile, because I have seen them from a job searching perspective. They've come up as I've been scrolling through, and they're really very, very effective. I think we'd all say videos are far more engaging and capture people's attention as opposed to, you know, just a few words and a picture. And in fact, Elvis, you have set up a group, haven't you? A secure group on LinkedIn, professional development. And I think it would be a good idea, Elvis, if you drafted a video and popped it onto that group, and then we can review it and perhaps give you some guidance.
Yeah, perfect.
You know,
Perfect. And the idea is also enhancing all the participants to this webinar to be part of this group, and they have to prepare their videos as well. I'm not going to be the only one. They have to. I'm not going to send some reminders as well to all of them, because we need to be a little bit out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, and I think we're all in that situation. You know, I was, and particularly today with my technical glitches. It's not good. So I think practice makes perfect. Yeah. And yeah, it would be a good support for everybody. And, you know, people could post comments in there, perhaps areas where they're looking for support. It's the lockdown group, so, you know, you could do your trial videos on there before you launch them globally onto LinkedIn. So I'm sure. So you're going to reach out to people later on, Elvis, and share.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, super. So I'm going to go back now, hopefully, into my presentation to effective networking. One of the best tips that I can share with you in regards to networking is to keep an eye on who is keeping an eye on you on LinkedIn. So when we're putting our content on there, who's liking it, who's commenting, who's interacting with you really on LinkedIn, and view their profile. So look at the companies that they work with, visit the company websites. The company may have a LinkedIn page that you could follow. Are they actually recruiting for roles? And you can follow specific companies on LinkedIn, and you can also add job search preferences as well. And LinkedIn will automatically send roles which may be of interest. So it's important to utilize those connections on LinkedIn and be proactive in your job search at all. Reach out, let people know your situation, ask for some help, ask them for referrals, market information. We all know that one person, don't we, who's really in touch with the market. You know, ask them to help you, because we want to undertake a proactive job search through our networking. And a proactive job search uncovers what we call the hidden job market. And the hidden job market is basically where companies have vacancies, but they are yet to be brought to the open market. And there is a statistic out there that quotes over 92% of jobs are filled via the hidden job market. So that highlights the importance of adopting this type of approach in your job search strategy. So we can also pull together a list of companies that match our criteria or our interests, whether that be in our sector or, as Elvis was talking about before, when we're considering our transferable skills. You can get your contact names from LinkedIn, search on people who work there. Don't forget HR contacts as well. HR obviously are thoroughly involved in the recruitment process. It's important to include them from day one. And then you're going to email a tailored cover letter and CV across to them. So you're going to proactively approach those individuals to see if there are any opportunities within their business. Leave it for 5 days, and then I advise people to do a contact call, so a follow-up call. And this is where it can feel a little bit awkward, but I would encourage you to overcome that awkwardness and pick up the phone and have a chat, because that's how you can start to differentiate yourself. If I give you an example, in October I had a week off work for a much needed break, and prior to going I had 3 job roles that I wanted to start talent pooling for, because I knew my client was going to start recruiting in November. So I put some jobs out, some job specs out, and some messages out. And I came back off my holiday, and it was a fantastic response to that. I had well over 150 applications. And there were 4 people that called me to follow up. So I sent out generic responses to people, and then 4 people followed up with me. So I would encourage you, if at all, to do that. It can take a little bit of tenacity, and it can take a lot of courage, but it can be really worthwhile. And the final point that I wanted to make on effective networking was to encourage you to attend your local institute events. So both myself and Elvis do a lot of work with the ICME and the IMECE, and I know Elvis does a lot of work with the IRM, and each of these institutes hold regional groups, and at every event they always dedicate some time to networking, and it's a great way to undertake some informal networking, because normally you're not one of hundreds of people. They tend to be small groups, so you can normally work your way around the room and do some introductions, and you'd be amazed, you will most often meet some key decision makers or some influencers, or at best you will get some really good market intelligence that could lead you to a job role or an opportunity. And always be ready to make a good first impressions, because as we know, first impressions genuinely count. And when I'm talking about networking, I often talk about a gentleman who I met over 9 years ago now at an event. It was an ICME event I was presenting in Warrington, of all places. And this gentleman travelled to see me from Manchester. He lived just outside Manchester. He was actually studying his Masters at the time. And I don't know if anybody on the webinar is from that neck of the woods, but to get from where he lived in Manchester to Warrington, it's 2 trains, a bus ride, and then he had a short walk. So he certainly put the effort in to come and see me, which impressed me. It showed me his drive and his enthusiasm, and gave me an insight into some of his behaviours. But when I met him, he really impressed me. The way that he communicated, his overall demeanour. He was evidently a very intelligent person, but I didn't have anything for him at that moment in time. I was still working in an agency. However, 6-7 months went by, and this gentleman stayed in my brain. He'd made an impact, and a requirement came through from a client, and I remembered him, called him. He was still actively looking for work. We presented him. He was successful. He secured the role, and that gentleman now actually still works with me to this day at OSL, and he's currently one of our senior process engineers. So although networking sometimes doesn't deliver immediate results, the impact of doing effective networking in your job search strategy can be really, really positive and bring really positive results. To talk about the value of using a specialist professional recruitment agency, and I think if I was presenting to you in a room now, I'd probably hear the odd groan under the breath when I mentioned agents. Having been one myself, I know that the quality of agents can be variable. The challenge really to a job seeker is to source a good, credible agent. There is a common complaint or problem that I hear surrounding recruitment agencies, and that's around poor communication. Some agents have a bad reputation, particularly around candidate feedback. In fact, there's a gentleman that I was speaking to on Tuesday, and he'd interviewed, he hadn't even had interview feedback, which is awful. And I always remember when I was training to be a recruiter, my old boss taught me a really valuable lesson. He said, Sarah, you've got 2 sets of clients in recruitment. You've got your end client hirer, but you've also got your candidate who is also a client. And consistent feedback is essential for both sets of clients. So it's really important for you as a job seeker to do your research on agencies. Recommendations are great. Normally will be specific to an agent as opposed to the agency that they work for. But it's key to try and source somebody who not only specialises in your industry sector that you work in, but also your job role discipline as well. There are a lot of agencies out there who one day may be recruiting for a project engineer, the next day they might recruit for an instrument tech. If at all possible, try and source an agent who not only works in your sector, but also has disciplines for job role specific knowledge. And if you're able to do that, then an agent will add real value to your job search. But it's key that you educate them on how you want them to work for you. And what I mean by that is you need to very clearly state that you only want your CV sending to a company that you've given your permission for your CV to be sent to. And you may be listening to me thinking, well, Sarah, isn't that obvious? Of course, you know, they're going to call me and tell me about an opportunity and I'm going to give them my permission to send my CV. But some agents don't work in that way, and they will blanket send out your CV to clients that they might not even have spoken with. Now that's very dangerous. Some people may view that as great, well, it opens up a whole load of opportunities for me, but it brings more negatives than positives. It brings a negative around end client perception. My husband used to run a large engineering team, and I regularly remember him coming home and telling me tales of him having received Joe Bloggs' CV through 6, 7, 8 times via different routes. You can only imagine the message that sends to a potential end hirer. So we need to avoid that. And if you ring an agent and ask how they work, you'll get a feel as to how they're going to behave with your CV. But ultimately, you need to tell them. And also you can ask if they will do some proactive work on your behalf as well. They may have specific relationships, strong relationships with clients, and they could do some proactive approaches for you. So we're going to move on to the final couple of slides now. I'm going to cover letters and some tips on writing our CV. I think I said initially, cover letters are a really traditional form of job application, but there is a really strong argument for a well-written cover letter because it can act as a key differentiator. So I wanted to review some key tips with you. The first one is, please don't make your cover letter too long. 2.5 paragraphs is fine. And we don't want to be regurgitating our CVs. They're hopefully going to read your CV thoroughly after they finish your cover letter. So your cover letter has to bring something fresh. You need to think not what the company can do for you, but what can you do for the company. So you need to use that sort of language when you're talking to them. And ideally, tell a story, without it being too cheesy, but, give them an insight into why you're interested in their business. It may be that they have a particular innovative product that you've been following in the media and you're keen to become involved in that. It can be really engaging if you tell a story and it's just a little bit different. And finally, cut the fluffiness and the wooliness. A cover letter is a real opportunity for you to be real, to be genuine and authentic. And if you are genuine and authentic, it's far more powerful and it's far more engaging. So finally, moving on to your CV. For me, your CV is just like your LinkedIn profile. It is a key marketing tool for your personal brand. And a really well-written CV is the key to you securing an interview. And people often ask me for guidance around how to write a CV. So I thought if we run through some key points today, that will hopefully be helpful and point you in the right direction. So firstly, my first kind of rule is that your CV should always be chronologically written. So we start with the most recent experience and work backwards. We're going to use an uncluttered layout. And what I mean by that is use a clear font. You want plenty of white space around the edges of your CV as well. Basically, you want your CV to be appealing and easy to read. If you go back to when I came back off my holiday in October and I had over 150 CVs to go through, that is a lot of reading. So you want to make a CV easy to read so people do not skip read and miss something. Another point on easy to read CVs is to use bullet points. They're great. They're a great way of guiding someone's eye through your CV. and you can use them to detail your experience or specific achievements and successes. A common question that I get asked is, how long should my CV be? And people ring me and say, oh, Sarah, my CV is going over 2 pages. And I'll say to them, don't worry about that. For me, the 2-page CV is a bit of a myth, particularly as I have more experienced candidates. You want to tailor your CV for a specific job role. You don't want it to be an essay. You don't want it to be too long, but 3 pages is more than comfortable for a CV. So don't get too hung up on the 2-page CV rule. The CV can be the first impression that a potential future employer gets of you. And if you have typo mistakes or grammatical errors, it's not setting a good example of your attention to detail. So it's key that you double check all of your basics. And once you've written your CV, I'd like you to ask yourself a question. Is my CV effectively selling my skills? Am I detailing my skills and giving an insight into some examples? Remember, making it tangible, making it believable. It's also important on your CV to have a personal profile or summary. This sits just under your name, address, contact details. It's only 6 to 8 sentences, but it needs to be really punchy, and it needs to highlight key achievements or skills that are relevant to the job role that you're applying for. So let's just look in a little bit more detail on the chronological layout. So as I say, you need to start with your most recent position and work backwards. We're going to obviously detail the company name that you worked for. You can give a brief overview of what they do if you like. We're going to detail our start and finish dates. And we're going to include actual months so that it's very clear how long you were specifically working at that business for and in what position. You need to treat promotions as a separate position so that they really stand out and are clear to the reader. If you've got any gaps at all on your CV, please explain them, because often when there's a gap, people will draw a negative, and if there's an explanation, it can help to contain that. So always explain any gaps. People often ask, where do I put my education or my training or my software skills? Well, normally it's on the front page of a CV, but only the relevant ones. If you're one of these lucky people who've done lots of training courses and had lots of development opportunity, just put the relevant ones on the front page, and you can add the rest on the last page. And final point really is around references. It's really an unnecessary contact. And I always think it's far politer if you ring up your referee and say, I'm going to be giving you as a referee, is that still okay? And then they're expecting the contact. It just feels the right way to do things. Okay, Elvis.
Thank you so much. Just to give now more opportunities to people and all the participants to make questions and comments on this masterclass in talent management and professional development. Please, I want to just emphasize, don't hesitate in contacting us. We are here, and actually we are helping a lot of professionals worldwide. Sarah, our senior management team, we are also coaching professionals in these areas, like Sarah mentioned. One of the things, please avoid this type of behavior in LinkedIn, like sometimes even I don't know anyone, and the first email I receive or the first message, sir, do you have a job position for me? I don't know him. I never had the opportunity to talk to him. So politely I said, well, if I have something, I'll let you know. But one of these opportunities of this webinar, right now you are going to have a LinkedIn group, which is the name, please, is Talent Management and Professional Development. It's going to be a closed group. The idea here is start creating our own community, our own tribe. Don't forget sending Sarah, myself, or Sarah directly UCV, if you have it. Her team is talking every day with clients and professionals worldwide. And who never know, you are a prospect there. So if you want as well any feedback or something like that, we are here to help you. Of course, if your organization wants to implement data-driven talent management plans or wants to get the right alignment of our people to enhance growth, please email us as well. I have new data analytics software, people's analytics and technologies that allows organizations to detect the right skills, the right behavior, the right motivators, and so forth. As I mentioned before, the group that you are going to have, Talent Management and Professional Development, is our own group for sharing information, your videos, giving feedback. We are preparing other webinars. Actually, Sarah and her team is preparing a hands-on talent management and professional development plan in a joint venture with the OSL Analytics Academy, where we are going to have a professional development program where you are going to start creating your risk-based talent management and professional development strategy.
Right. One of my questions is, Sarah, basically, we've known each other for a long time.
Don't count how many years.
I'm not going to. But in the days when we first met, having a degree was less of an issue. Now, as I get to be, I'll be honest, 56, not having a degree is becoming a more increasing concern, particularly with electronic surfing of people's CVs to decide whether they're appropriate for a job. Mm-hmm. How do we deal with that?
I think that the electronic scoping of CVs, if you haven't got a degree, obviously you're not going to put it down on the CV, you're not going to get picked up on the search.
Nope.
My advice would be is to pick up the phone, Russ. I mean, knowing you as I do and that persona that you've got, there will always be some clients who are insistent on the qualification piece.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, that's entirely up to them. That's their decision to make. But we know that experience can often compensate bucket loads for a degree on a piece of paper from X amount of years ago. And it's around having the opportunity to convey that, really. And if you're dealing with an agent and they're using a computer to screen, which I'm not bought into at all for all sorts of reasons, this being one of them, you have to pick up the phone to them and have that conversation with them. If it's direct with an end client, it's a little bit more easy because you can speak with HR directly and look to influence them in the right way, give them an overview. I might not have, however, this is a skill set. Let's talk this through and really have the opportunity to sell yourself, as opposed to just sending a CV through and you being put in the no pile because the qualification isn't there. No,
exactly. The second question, actually, given there's a certain irony amongst it, given that Elvis has just presented a quite long thing not in his native language. Some of the things we're starting to see at the moment, particularly, I've moved into pharmaceuticals, is there are a lot of job opportunities in the near Europe areas, particularly in Switzerland and Germany, who are requesting language skills. And you and I have spoken at length over many years about language skills being a differentiator. Do you still think it is?
Yes, definitely, without a doubt. I still think multilingual, bilingual, it's definitely a different differentiator, particularly within specific industry sectors, as you've just highlighted there, the pharmaceutical industry. Without a doubt. I mean, we have a couple of people in our team, our technical team in-house, and we've spoken about this directly, and they've actually taken on board independent study, and we've really developed their language skills. Some European languages, but one's actually decided to go and learn Chinese, which is incredibly challenging, but they're doing that for obvious reasons. So yes, in my opinion, it is a good differentiator.
Yeah, because I mean, from my point of view, I think I've always seen it that I've been lucky enough to go and work in foreign countries and pick stuff up as you go. But I think definitely some of these crash courses, sort of 2-week external courses that people can do, can make the difference as to whether or not you're appropriate for a job. Particularly, maybe not if you don't want to work out the country, but given the fact that, when I worked in Holland, I could be there quicker and back than I could if I worked in Southampton.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a good point to bring up, Russ. It was one of the differentiators that I talked about initially on the earlier slides for that very reason. I think it can help you stand out.
Okay.
Yes, perfect. I have another question here, Sarah.
I'm seeing, we're looking at recruiting people, and we go through LinkedIn, and if I see a CV that comes in, I look at it, and I'm seeing some people that are, let's put it politely, flowering up their experience, and some people who are putting on experience that I know somebody else has.
I think your point, Mick, as well, around somebody not being quite so transparent or honest on the profile. If we think back in the day, we've both read CVs like that, haven't we? So that if somebody's going to do it on LinkedIn, their CV will probably be exactly the same as well, in that it could be a little bit misleading, or they could perhaps be overselling. And that really then takes us into the realm of interviewing techniques. I mean, for you, Nick, you'll know that they're not being honest, because you probably know who was involved in that work, on which projects, and who did X and who did Y. So you get an early heads up on it. But from my side of things, it would be my interview technique that enabled me really to home in and find out, okay, well, what are the tangibles that this person actually has done, or were they working part of a big team and they were one of 20 odd people who contributed to the end result. So I think there's perhaps a little bit of overselling going on profiles that you mentioned, and to me that kind of person will do that on the CV as well.
I totally agree with that, Sarah. I'm just thinking about the the algorithms that people are developing. I think you touched on it. Do remain professional on it, because they have to, because that's where they're spotted. But I think if we do rely on computers rather than people like yourself looking through someone's CV, then there is a risk there that some good candidates will disappear.
For sure, absolutely. And that takes me back again, Nick, to the point of, if you are going to work with agents, to make sure that you source somebody who knows that sector and knows that discipline. I mean, I don't think Kevin, our chief electrical guy, is on this call today, but he was speaking to me a couple of weeks ago, moaning really about an agent who kept sending him job roles, and it was basically a technician's position, which he found quite insulting, to be honest with you. But it's because he had a specific type of software on his CV, and it just kept coming up. So time and time again, he'd get repeat phone calls about this role that he was just nowhere near suitable for. So yeah, it's well worth doing some homework.
Now Graham Horrell has a question about the decarbonization.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. It just is, folks. Hi, and first of all, Elvis and Sarah, thank you for great presentations there. I've attended a few of these online sessions recently on decarbonisation. I know a lot of us are in the Humberside area at the moment, and that's kind of great news for us in terms of opportunities. People have made the point that having oil and gas on your CV almost gets you filtered out of any job searches rather than filtered in. Is that something you guys have come across, and have you got any views on it?
I have to be honest with you, Graham, I haven't come across that, but I think it depends on the way that an agent works, to be honest, and how they effectively sell skill sets. I haven't repeatedly had that come up as a concern or a blocker. I think it's around somebody's ability really to influence and talk through transferable skills. I mean, it's obvious that if somebody has worked in that exact same industry sector previously, then they're ahead of the game in that regard. But there could be other areas where they're not. And from recent conversations, and when I say recent, I'm probably going back to the beginning of this calendar year, clients that I talk to have the ability to be open-minded on that. You know, it's as much about getting the right type of individual with the right behaviours as having the technical knowledge. So I wouldn't wholeheartedly agree with that comment, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's encouraging. Thank you.
It's our job as engineers as well to understand what are that challenges, what are that type of projects, and how the skills you have, because probably you have experience in project management, you have experience in inspection, you have experience in vibration analysis, stress testing, other type of technical areas. The only thing that you need is how my skills are solving these problems, and start narrowing UCV, your storytelling. The other part of the solution as well is the relationship and the understanding from the agency to pitch the right message to this type of company as well.
That's great feedback. Thank you, Elvis.
Okay. Now I have Raisa Bukhari. He said, I have found that the professional requirements for the job specification are becoming unrealistic on what is required. They want someone with 25, but with 20 years of experience, and sometimes very specific requirements with little use of transferable skills. Sarah, I think you have been having that problem a lot, because sometimes the clients are giving you job specifications that are not realistic.
Yeah, and that's the point, really. I think when you write a job spec, whether it be for us internally or external ones that I receive from a client, you do put your ideal down. And your ideal includes everything that you possibly want from that role and that individual. And then there's a bit of a reality check that's needed. You know, we may test the market and think, well, is our ideal out there? Happy days if they are, but normally they're not. And there's always elements of a job spec that can be negotiable or that aren't quite important. You'll have your key must-haves that are your essentials, and then you'll have others where you will have flexibility. And to be quite honest, sometimes, particularly from a client's perspective, it can be the time to hire that determines that flexibility. You know, if you've got a really short time to hire and you need that individual, then you can't be holding out for your ideal. There's got to be a little bit more flexibility. But I think anybody, if they were honest, who wrote a job spec knows what their essentials are and what the desirables are, or the nice to haves.
Okay, I don't have anyone here interested in making more questions. Well, guys, as I mentioned, please don't forget to register in the group. It's a listed group, it's closed group, it's only for us. It's to create our own community, our own tribe. And the first task that probably we need to do in order to maximize the usage of this community is creating our own preliminary video where you are going to tell us what are you professional drivers, the personal drivers, what are your expectations, who are you, okay? Just think about it like as in the same way as Sarah mentioned. Just put your bullet points, and it's going to be a really good exercise because we can be out of the comfort zone. And Sarah, you have to do your own video as well, okay?
That's fine, Elvis. Great.
Thank you so much, guys, for your valuable time. Stay in touch.